Join us today on the Final Hour podcast as we talk to you about censorship gone too far on the major social media platforms.
We interrupt your program to issue a severe warning for an impending emergency making its way to your area. We urge you to be watchmen of the times and to be prepared with the essential knowledge and supplies for the wake of the final hour.
Welcome to the Final Hour podcast, coming to you from the original Living Word Christian Center.
That's right.
Out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, the very blue state of Minneapolis, city and state of Minnesota, Minnesota. Unfortunately, in the elections, Minnesota went straight blue across the board. And so it does show that we are, at this point, outnumbered. But I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere.
Me neither.
We're here to hold things back. And I still believe that you need to pray for the government.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting to see where the House Representatives nationally, although we think that went red, and where the Senate went nationally. So with that, I still want to say, you need to pray for our government. You need to pray for government leaders. We gave that scripture. If you want to live a peaceful life, you should do that on a daily basis. We're not talking about a half hour of intercessory prayer either. You just need to pray. I believe in your understanding, and lift up prayers to Him for them to have wisdom, and you can use your authority to push things back from them. Today we are taping, this is Thursday, November 10th, as we're taping this at about 10:15 a.m.
Yep.
That's right.
And this will air on Monday, November 14th at midnight. Okay, so just kind of give you an idea of where, where our taping goes and how many days in between. My name is Jim Hammond. And I'm happy to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm Lonaiah Farrell. I'm always happy to be here.
My name is John, and thanks Kingdom Coffee, not a sponsor. We had a team meeting over there today. That was awesome.
We did. Yes.
We did, and another member, JD, over here producing, but we just came from Kingdom Coffee, and over in Maple Grove off Main Street, it replaced the old Dunn brothers there. Friend of mine owns the place, and I hope I can say her name. And they're not paying us to say this.
No. It's organic love for the coffee shop.
Friends of that family. Coached two of her younger sisters in high school basketball. Isabel Lenore is only 21 years old. She owns Kingdom Coffee. And that tells you about America.
Right.
I don't think there's many places in the world that, someone 21 years old can just get it done like that. It's phenomenal coffee. You ought to try it. I realize, I drink that cold Starbucks in the morning right out of the fridge so you can slam it. And it does not compare to what I had today, as far as the coffee buzz goes. I thought I was way beyond a coffee buzz, and I noticed that driving out of Kingdom Coffee, I had to kind of check myself and pay. I was just pay attention, buckle down. You're on the road. I haven't had a coffee buzz in years. I thought that was way past that. I drink a lot of coffee, but I had 2 depth charges. I think they call them red eyes over there. And so shout out to her and just what she's accomplished over there.
Regular listeners.
Yes.
Also to the podcast.
Yes, know the family extremely well. It's an incredible family.
Well, can you just explain really quick what she said to you, like what she does with where she gets her coffee beans from, and why we're... What?
Can you tell Lonaiah's a little
fuzzy
in the head too.
Yeah.
But I was talking to her before, and she was like, well, she's a missions. She's pretty much spent the last 10 years maybe of her life. She does a lot of missions work, and her main mission is to find the producers of coffee.
Yeah, those coffee growers.
That need an upgrade in life. She searches to where to buy the beans from to really upgrade people's lives, of the growers, the lives of the growers. And I was like, geez, you got to do a commercial on that.
Right.
But that's I'll have to go back there. That could easily turn into a habit. But, we're talking about censorship gone too far. Biden's secret thought police, explosive leaked Department of Homeland Security documents. Someone is on our side here. Reveal the extensive censorship network that is flowing directly between the Biden regime and the big tech and the banks.
Yeah.
Department of Homeland Security plans to censor stories about the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, the efficacy of COVID-19 vaccines, racial justice, U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and the nature of U.S. support to Ukraine. Right.
Their hands are in a lot of little areas there, isn't it?
Right.
A text between a Microsoft executive and Department of Homeland Security director says platforms have got to get comfortable with the government. And, Facebook literally created an open channel between themselves and Department of Homeland Security so the agency could flag what it wanted silenced. So we're talking about free speech.
Yeah,
here.
that is
what this is all about.
That doesn't surprise me, though.
Yeah,
when
but
you look at it.
The great thing is, because the conversation over the last probably 5 years was, does a private company or a public company like Facebook or Twitter or whatever, can they censor whatever they want? Because it's their own deal. They can let whatever they want to through and not through. But the conversation is now, well, if they are being influenced or if they are being instructed by the government, that no longer is it just a public company, it is now an arm of the government. And so now free speech must be followed. It has to be allowed. So they can't censor people.
Well, the one thing that I like, and I'm a little undecided about Elon Musk and buying Twitter, but I do like that he's at least fact checking the White House tweets that are coming out, where they were saying, that this is the best place for people with Social Security.
Right.
And then they talked about the Inflation Reduction Act, and they tweeted and they linked you to the actual Inflation Reduction Act bill, so you could read it for yourself to see that it doesn't actually reduce inflation.
Yeah, because Biden was touting that there was the biggest increase in Social Security payments in 10 or 12 years or whatever. And Twitter, they're like, actually, it's only increased because your economy has massive inflation.
Right.
And just that's because they're screwed otherwise.
Right. Right.
So,
but I just like that platform is, hey, we're here for both sides right now, at least, and we'll fact check you, even if you are the White House tweet. And then they asked whatever the lady's name is, Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is. They asked her about the tweet and why it got redacted because the White House ended up removing it. And she said it was an incomplete tweet when they tweeted it out.
Well,
has the government ever sent out an incomplete tweet in its life? No. But anyways.
Twitter and Facebook had regular meetings with the Department of Homeland Security on censoring Americans. And Dr. Fauci, Jim Psaki, and FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan will be deposed on November 23rd in Missouri.
Mr. Chan.
Louisiana social media collusion case.
Good.
I know.
And so hopefully that
does something.
Goes somewhere. You can use your prayers even to cause that to go somewhere.
I believe Eric Schmidt is the Attorney General of Missouri, and I think he's the one who deposed them.
Yeah,
but that's coming up.
prayer that there is light shed, that the darkness can be dispelled over that. So there's real understanding, real clarity about what is actually happening.
But going back to we did a little 3-week thing on the authority of the believer. You can dispel darkness using your authority, and with certain commands. And so, where the world is going, a Dutch government bill proposes monitoring all transactions over 100 euros. And so we've talked about that. And people in the Biden administration have openly talked about that. These transactions would be saved and centralized with government for up to 5 years. And so they're just talking about watching you. Trudeau up there, Castro's relative. He's got
direct relative?
We think so.
He's got censorship legislation. Bill C-11 will silence everyday Canadians on social media platforms. This bill is about to be approved by the Senate in Canada, and it's going to begin allowing individuals to receive assisted suicide, Canada, based upon mental illness. And so,
Canada.
If you're mentally ill, then how do you know? Right.
Well, I know. I wondered the same thing when I was reading that. And also homeless people, like if they're homeless people, they're like, okay, you can't live anymore. Basically, you're not attributing to society.
Right.
You can't afford food. Let's just euthanize you.
Well, and there's a lot of people that think anyone who believes in an unseen God is an mentally unwell person as well. So, that slide, that scale of what is a mentally well person, if it's up to other people, it might not be real, and it might be a way to get rid of opposition.
But you also have to take into account their agenda to depopulate the world. Well, and this is just another way to be like,
and that
we'll try it this way.
That leads into Gavin Newsom in California withholds $1 billion, rejects local plans to fight homelessness. And California counted more than 173,000 homeless people last year. So why isn't he helping them?
Yes.
I mean, this is the progressive left, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they've gotten $1 billion to help these people. He rejected it. Why? Because they want to let them die, right? They want to let them die,
right?
And
he just got reinstated again.
Reelected.
Yes,
and it was interesting. Re-elected. Evidently, he didn't even really campaign at all, because then that would have called to attention that he was up for reelection. It's been interesting to watch. People are like, Gavin Newsom's up for reelection, and people are like.
I didn't know that either because I saw
right under the radar.
It did slide right under the radar.
They hit it.
They did.
But there was some point based on this that
I was talking about depopulation. So why isn't he wanting to spend money to help the homeless people? If you go to California, or even a couple years ago, our family went to San Francisco, and there's homeless people everywhere, and they said. We have some friends that live there, and they said it's like 10 times worse than it was 5 years ago. So if you have a bill that's being presented to you and you have a way to help these people, why don't you want to help these people?
Because they want to depopulate.
Right. Make them feel like they're nothing, and then just be like, you know what? Let's just end your life.
And I know we're both in like the Kingdom Coffee haze here, but I thought when we were talking about this over there that I said, bring this.
Oh, no. You mean the California abortion proposition?
Yes, talking about depopulation. Just quickly.
California, on their ballot this year, they had a Proposition 1, which we've talked to you about before, where you can abort a child up to the time of delivery, and that got passed. So you had people say, yes, we want this bill to be passed where you can abort a child up to 40 weeks.
Yep.
That's a full child. And also Montana also passed.
Murder.
Yes.
That is murder.
You deliver your baby and you're like, nah, I don't want it anymore. You can leave the child unattended and it just dies.
Montana voted that, which surprised me.
Very surprising.
51%, yes. 1 million
51% of the Montana population voted that if you have a baby, you can just leave it to die. I guess.
Can I just read it just so that people can look it up? Montana referendum number 131. This was what was on the ballot. Requires medical care for infants born alive. 223,000 people said no. 250,000 voted no to require medical care for infants born alive.
So in other words, if someone wants to just leave their baby to die, they can now do that in Montana.
Like I didn't get an abortion, but now I don't want that child anymore. I won't feed it. I won't do anything with it. Just let it starve to death.
I don't think we even treat our animals like that, but really you need to pray. You
can go to jail for that.
You need to pray for God's mercy on this country. It shows where our country is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It shows just the evil, that has taken hold. And number one, we pray to hold it back. Yeah. But number two, we have to pray for an awakening in the country.
Yeah.
An awakening as far as the latter rain and the power of God goes, because that's kind of the point we are at. Zelensky and Ukraine showcase new hologram technology. In the middle of his war, promotes the digitization of everything, including vaccine passports and metaverse. And so, he's
a virtual world in the middle of a war.
There's something,
it's an escape,
weird about that. And the amount of money that we're giving to them.
I was actually thinking about that because technically they're in a war, right? So you can give them money and you can put it under the guise of aid for war,
right?
But what are they really using it for? Because I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they said up to 5 years ago, they're basically talking about how corrupt Ukraine's government was, and how they were getting money from the United States and what they're doing with it. And now it's hush, hush, hush.
Right.
They push all that down, and it's just Ukraine is
and Ukraine
needs our help.
still a lot of the corporations there and in Ukraine still have Russian supporting. I mean, there are still ties,
right? I just don't understand that, but we just keep funneling money.
I just look at that. It's exactly the whole. We did a whole podcast on it early. Ukraine war. Take it with a grain of salt, and we'll find out one day really. What's fallen. And I'm not. I support the Ukrainian people. I do not support the Russian aggression. Mm-hmm. I think we're coming out with how much money here that we're giving to them. On another hand, first humans receive transfusions of lab-grown blood. Boy, I'd like to be one of those.
I would not.
And tax-funded.
So crazy.
Since 2015, more than $16.7 million of Pennsylvania tax dollars have been spent on puberty-blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, gender-related surgeries for minors. So that's in
2015.
That's
a long time.
That's in the great state of Pennsylvania, right? And NBC reported this last week that voter ID laws disproportionately impact trans people because trans people are more likely to have IDs without the name that they go by and the gender marker that reflects how they present.
I have a question about that. Don't you just think they're trying to find another way to get rid of us having to present our IDs when we go to vote? So they're just trying to get rid of that so that anybody can vote, like all the immigrants coming in. They're just pushing more reasons against the voter ID laws because they say it's
the voter
racist
ID
and transgender now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Generally, right-leaning people are for voter IDs and left-leaning people are against. And I think it really goes down to control and transparency with elections, because if you must have an ID to vote, then you can be tracked. You can say exactly how much that you have voted one time. And every ID gets one vote, and that's it.
Can I say one thing about the voting? If you paid attention to Florida during this midterm election, you had to vote in person and had to show your voter ID, or you had to show your ID.
Yeah.
Well, they had the results within hours.
Yeah. Right.
They were the fastest one called.
You can't
for the state.
hijack the election.
No.
You can't fake votes if you must have an ID.
No.
And, I felt like, that, because of course they're not going to be reporting this on CNN, but that illustrious show, The View, with those classy women.
Classy, very, very classy.
One of the
I can't believe I used to watch that show.
One of the hosts calls suburban white women roaches, deplorables, MAGA extremists, and now roaches. Sunny Hostin took aim at suburban white women during a show last week, comparing them to roaches voting for Raid. And so that's the View for you, So
because
tune into the View on a daily basis.
Yes,
right?
because a lot of suburban house moms supposedly vote Democrat, right? Because they're voting for the schools and all that stuff.
Right.
But they said based off of just watching what's happening in schools with sex ed, whatever, everything you've seen, critical race theory teaching, all that, they kind of got swayed to the Republican side because they started seeing what was happening with their kids at school. So a lot of them are going Republican, and that upset her.
Yeah, so she called them all roaches.
So she called them roaches.
Suburban white women.
Classy.
So tune into the View, okay? They have your best interest in mind, especially white suburbia women, right? And so the Atlantic wrote an opinion piece called "Let's Declare a Pandemic Amnesty," asking for forgiveness for their COVID restrictions.
Okay.
Wow.
I just want to read one of her quotes.
This is a left, obviously leaning lady.
Yeah.
Yes.
Saying that we should be forgiven. I'm surprised they're even admitting.
This is what she said. She
That's
said,
agreed.
because we were so in the dark in the beginning of COVID, we implemented social distancing, masks that were basically bandanas on our faces that didn't do anything. Schools were closed for too long.
Yep.
But let's forgive all that and let's just move it away. When we had people dying by themselves, I listened to this one guy on a podcast, and he's like, I had to watch my dad on FaceTime die by himself in a hospital room because they wouldn't let me in there. But let's just forgive all that because they were in the dark.
Right. But and that was the thing is they wanted to tout science so much without actually having science on their side.
Right.
When there's a lot of people saying, hey, can we just prove it out? And everybody complied with the 2 weeks. Let's flatten the curve.
Yeah, flatten the curve. Fine. I was fine with flattening the curve for 2 weeks.
Let's do it. But then when it didn't work.
Okay. I don't know about you, but I was on a path walking during COVID because you could walk during certain hours, right? So I take my dog on a walk and you would pass somebody.
More now.
And I didn't wear a mask. You're outside, right?
Right.
I live in a heavily
Western suburb.
Yes. And they're very democratic there, and they love their social distancing, their masks. And I remember this lady yelled at me on the path for not putting a mask on when she walked by me. I'm like, we're outside, but she'd be like, social distance, put a mask on.
Yep.
Well,
Are
they pulling the Christian card on forgiveness in that article?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so
trying.
That's what they're saying, because you're all Christians, you should forgive everything that went on during the pandemic stuff.
Families were divided during that.
And they're saying that you should forgive us. And I'll just say, I have no unforgiveness towards you, but I will never trust you.
I will never trust you.
I will never trust you, lady, whoever you are. And so Johnson & Johnson agrees to buy a heart device maker, for $16.6 billion. Remember, Johnson & Johnson was the
one of
vaccine.
the
was the vaccine that was, one of the vaccines that was proven to be faulty.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's scary when now you've got them owning heart device makers.
It's because what is one of the major
myocarditis?
One of the major problems is the myocarditis, the heart issues. Interesting. Now they are going to try to profit from issues from
the vaccine.
From their vaccine.
Yeah.
And great positive note, a judge orders reinstatement back pay for fired NYC workers who rejected the vaccine.
It's starting to happen all over the nation. And it should.
And
absolutely.
The U.S. pledges an additional $270 million. This is for battlefield weaponry for the Ukraine. So the total U.S. aid, has been $18.5 billion. Hasn't even been a year. And so,
but for what? And they're saying you can't even track any of that. You don't even know.
That's the thing. We're not getting receipts.
No. No, we're not getting receipts.
You got to get receipts at work.
But then you look at Zelensky just made a hologram in a metaverse universe. I don't know. For what? What's the hologram for?
What?
And you've got this company in Indiana called Paragon Medical now has a Chinese flag flying at its facility.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
John
in Pierceton.
That one is
Indiana.
wild. Yep.
And, the Chinese, I was watching a show. I've got a little channel on my basic TV that you can find called NTD News. You should check it out.
Not today, Satan News.
And it's a real news. And they were talking about how China, has its fingers in everything, right? And look at this. Isn't that interesting here?
Mm-hmm.
What we've got is we've got American companies flying Chinese flags. And so with that news segment, we head into...
That's despicable, though.
It is. But does it surprise us? I mean, think about it. China buys so much land in the United States. Why should that shock any of us?
Right.
Well, on the spiritual side, we've got 2 and 2 today. 2 news, two spiritual teachings. And I just had... it was the Kingdom Coffee girl tell me this morning that it does... They're what's the word? These are dark, these teachings. So we're going to have to...
But we're not here for them.
Almost as
That's
dark
what I have
as
to tell myself.
Almost as dark as the dark roast.
Well, it's going to get a little bit lighter where it's more instruction to the church in the last days. We go through the 7 letters to the 7 churches, which Revelation 2 and 3 in detail, 1 church per week. And so, but here, this is the last one on the Revelation timeline. It's just the truth. It's the book of Revelation. You can know it in a snapshot here, 31 events. Last week, we gave you the first 21 major earthly events in the 7-year Great Tribulation.
Yeah.
And we're just going to start out today with a loose timeline on the last 11 things. Revelation 16:1, I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And so going into the 7 bowl judgments, Revelation 16:2, the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped the image. There's going to be an image of the
like
Antichrist.
The hologram.
Yeah, it's going to be like a statue for you to worship.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Very possible.
Yeah, that could be part of it.
Like it'll just show up in your yard.
Well,
Put on your metaverse glasses and bing.
Still on Revelation 16, the second bowl judgment is worse than the second trumpet judgment because this turns the sea into blood. Many scholars believe literal blood. It kills everything in it. The third bowl judgment, again, would be a little worse than the third trumpet judgment because here we have all the fresh water turning to blood across the earth. So
gross.
You either have, I don't know that you can purify blood to water, right? So it's everybody that has water bottles at that point, stored water, will be living a lot like what happened in one of the plagues in Egypt.
Right.
Interesting point being made here in Revelation 16:6. This is the angel in charge of the waters. This is what he tells God, and so the fourth bowl judgment, I guess they'll be saying at this point, what he tells God is they deserve it. In essence, he says they deserve it because of everyone they've killed, right?
Yeah.
And the fourth bowl judgment, I guess they'll be saying at this point, climate change finally kicked in because the sun will be scorching people.
But can I say one thing about that? Because I was reading an article and they said that heat deaths are part of climate change. So more people are dying because it's hotter now.
Here we see late in the tribulation, that becomes reality because the sun will be hot enough where it can set people on fire.
Oof.
It literally says that in the Bible. The fifth bowl judgment, you have a population, many scholars believe, questioning the Antichrist.
Yeah.
They start to get sick of his stuff, starting to blame him. You have the whole kingdom being plunged at that point into darkness.
Yeah.
So there's no fresh water. All the water is blood. People are hiding from the sun first. They've got sores all over their bodies. It says in Revelation 16, men are gnawing their tongues and off because they're in so much pain. Then you have the sixth bowl judgment. The water is completely dried up in Euphrates. This is the tearing away for the final invasion of the Antichrist, that Euphrates rivers dries up. So for the armies to be able to march across to get to Jerusalem, the seventh bowl judgment is poured into the air of the atmosphere. Lightning hits the ground, and you have what's called in the Bible is the biggest earthquake. Biggest earthquake in the history of the world.
That's correct.
And the city of Babylon is completely destroyed. And so
like just a really quick thought, the Antichrist and all of his little minions and all the people working on this, think of how much control and power they have up to these points. Yeah. And then it all goes from them. I mean,
it doesn't go. And
just the water is blood now.
Yes.
What can you do about that?
Right.
And one of the judgments is they start to question him, his throne. This is poured out over his throne. So scholars believe, remember, he's already been wounded, but the world starts to come against him. And if you look in the Bible, he quickly, Armageddon is quick after that.
Yeah.
He quickly mobilizes those armies to get after Israel because he's losing. Right. He's losing his grip. He's losing his grip.
But I like that. I think it's funny because he thinks that he has it all planned out.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no.
I think it's interesting to see in action the sixth bowl judgment with the Euphrates drying up, which is, like one of the most famous rivers in all of the world.
Did we read about that
for the beginning of creation?
Right.
The Tigris and Euphrates, that's where Eden was. I mean, that's
the Garden of Eden.
Yep.
Yes.
So it's interesting to see that, it's set up for that to happen. I love to see that.
And, after these bold judgments, okay, you have what we have left is the Battle of Armageddon, the second coming of Christ. Satan, the Antichrist, and the false prophet are bound in chains and thrown into the lake of fire. So when, we come back here to close the podcast, I know some of you are so happy that we're going to be done with the final reading of the loose timeline. I'm going to run quickly through all major 31 events. Actually, it's 30 events. I've been misquoting that. In the 7-year tribulation, we're coming back with that. And then you know what? You're not going to hear any more about it. But I just wanted people to understand it.
Yeah,
I wanted people to understand it.
Yeah.
It helped me. I just read the Left Behind books and thought
you thought you had it all?
Yeah. I was like, I'm good. I read those books when I was a teenager. I got that list in my head.
I'm still working from Thief in the Night movies in the early 80s.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Talk about scary.
Oh, no.
I saw those when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And
it came out in the 70s, but I didn't see it till the 80s.
I was only in 5th or 6th grade.
Oh, man.
It was at Bloomington Church of God on a Friday night.
Jim remembers vividly.
It's a traumatic movie.
This little
don't
Church
send
of God
it to me.
church. And that was based on, I believe it was post-trib belief.
Yep.
And we were talking at Kingdom Coffee again this morning, just those post-trib people out there. I don't know. I've done a lot of teaching now on Revelation and, going back about 5 years. And I just cannot understand how they could explain away that there is no rapture of the church, that the church is going through the tribulation. Those people are so, in my opinion, lost, frustrating, and spreading fear. And I'll be the first one. Hey, if we're all left behind, we'll be calling church here at Living Word. And
I think I'm going to decline your call.
But
voicemail.
But I think there's a lot of people and even Christians that maybe belittle the actual spiritual power, the spiritual presence that the church is having in the earth, that just the presence of the church is holding back a lot of evil in this world.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that's one of those things that they miss in understanding how the tribulation could happen with the church here, because if the church isn't here, there's a lot less opposition to a lot of this that's going to go down.
The other thing they're missing is not just obvious, the New Testament talking about the rapture, numerous times, but the fact that in Revelation during the tribulation, chapters 6 through 19, the church is not mentioned one time.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is where all the crazy things are happening.
And so did you have?
No.
Okay. But back to the second set of news. Remember,
I was going to go down a road, but I'm not.
World Economic, with one of her famous questions.
I just am not going to go there right now.
World Economic Forum supporters. Gates Foundation commits $200 million to digital ID, public and other public infrastructures. This is for digital ID and civil registry databases.
Interesting.
The funding will address overlapping global crises that have reversed the progress already made toward achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, global goals. Basically what they said.
Wow, what a great guy. That's sarcastic if you don't feel it.
They've got goals for 2030.
Yes.
For you to own nothing and be happy. And what they're saying here is they're not even halfway towards achieving those goals. And, so he gives another $200 million.
That's kind of nice to hear. That they're nowhere near their goals for that. That's kind of encouraging to us.
Yeah.
Our voices are taking effect and we're pushing it back.
And you're going to
I'm looking for the positivity here.
I like it.
You're going to see this.
Good change.
More often as we go forward. The left-wing activist harassing, it didn't even look like a teenager. It looked like a child that was reading their Bible in a park. This is Madison, Wisconsin. They ripped it up and they were literally eating the pages.
How demonic.
They were trying to delete the video.
They were.
But wow.
He's just reading the Bible, like literally holding the Bible open and just reading it. And this person just come up and rip all the pages out and eats the pages.
That's in the great city of Madison, Wisconsin. It's college town there. And so,
I think, I what I was reading about it was like a pre-screening before the What is a Woman by Matt Walsh. Like they were doing a little thing and it just sets people off. But what is a woman?
Aaron Solberg, a podcast listener and supporter, sent us the following. Beware, this sort of open theology is making its way into all denominations. And the Episcopalians, who come from the Anglicans out of England, right? The strategy to halt its demographic decline, give Gen Z apps that serve up eclectic theologies, feminist, queer, to give them authentic do-it-yourself spirituality. Basically, you can modify your theology to fit your ideals. And the Episcopal Church has always been very left-leaning. I know a lot about the Episcopal Church because we went when we lived in Meridian, Mississippi, and I was just a child. We went to the Episcopal Church. Right. And that's really what pushed my parents from going there into Church of God. At that time, we moved up here. They were going to Church of God. And at that time, I don't know where Church of God theology is now, but they were teaching that God punishes you and God makes you sick. Well, then if God makes you sick, then do we really need a devil, right?
Right.
And so that ultimately pushed, because God does not make you sick.
No.
Ultimately pushed my parents into starting a church at that time. But the Episcopal Church is where they started out. And it's a messed up, in my opinion, left-leaning denomination. A Soros-backed group demands IRS crackdown on politically engaged churches. It's not about money. It's about free speech. And so it's very interesting. They're really going to go after that with the IRS and their new, hint, 87,000 weapon-trained agents. Yeah, we reported on just a while back. And so it's just an effort to crack down on Christian speech.
Yeah,
that matches other Biden administration initiatives, such as arresting pro-life advocates
Yeah, we've talked about that before on here.
Collaborating with the social media platforms to suppress stories that present Democratic candidates in a negative light. They're twisting the IRS policy now to try to silence churches. This is Family Research Council President Tony Perkins on Washington Watch. It's in a sense, it's voter suppression, because you can't a church can't endorse a candidate by law, but they can go with issues.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They can express their belief on issues, and so.
But I think that's interesting, because I actually saw some churches down south who had governors and senators that were running come into their churches and speak, and they're like,
on the left, right?
Well,
not on the right.
I remember.
No, they were promoting left.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. It's
like
okay
Stacy
on the left.
Abrams was.
It's okay on the left.
Even when Al Gore was involved, TD Jakes was like supporting Al Gore.
Well,
I was like,
TD Jakes supported Beta. Wait, what's his name? Yeah, Beta.
Robert. His name is Robert.
Yeah, and you
his
see
nanny called him Beto.
You see the church splitting. The church is literally splitting, right? And
But I mean, I was watching a church.
I like TD
Stacey
Jakes. I just
Abrams,
didn't
and
understand it.
We just talked about her in saying that heartbeats are manufactured and that she doesn't believe babies are people.
Right.
And then you had a big time pastor endorse her at his church, and I was like,
are you talking about Andy Stanley?
No, I'm talking about Creflo Dollar endorsed Stacy Abrams, and
it's just the truth.
I was shocked for 3 days. I just kept going back to it, and I was like, I'm confused,
right?
Just on what she has come out and said publicly in the last few weeks.
Yep,
Creflo Dollar endorsed Stacy Abrams.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just leave it at that. Google Stacy Abrams, and you'll see where that's going. And so, yes, the church is splitting.
But she didn't win, which I love.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lord.
She did not.
There's suppression going on, and it's the left trying to suppress evangelicals and other Bible-believing Christians. And so, on another note, end times birth pangs going on in the earth. Hawaii's island warned the world's largest active volcano is sending signals that it may erupt.
Yep.
And so we need to watch that. Environmental Minister of Gabon, Chris Lee, says climate change will not stop until more people die. Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Bring in Canada's euthanization.
And due to climate change, it's estimated that insect abundance will decline by 1% to 2% a year.
I'm okay with that.
World falls pitifully short of meeting climate goals, the UN is saying. On the other hand, why Germany is tearing down their wind farms to expand coal mines.
Yeah, Germany.
Because they've got an energy issue, right?
Yeah, because they need it. Otherwise, they're not going to have
Isn't it interesting though
warmth this winter.
The climate change people are now saying they're nowhere near their goals. And then you just had Bill Gates and the other things say they're nowhere near their goals. So I like it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if any of you caught this. I'm sure they wouldn't have it on CNN.
No.
Joe Biden said Friday that he wants to shut down coal plants across the United States and replace them with wind and solar. He was caught. Was he caught on a hot mic? Yes. And so quoting him, speaking at an event in California, it's going to become a wind generation. And all they're doing is going to save them an H of a lot of money, and using the same transmission line that they transmission the coal-fired electric on. We're going to be shutting these plants down all across America, having wind and solar power. You're going to be sorry. You're going to be sorry you didn't turn it.
You guys, let me tell you one thing. I don't know if any of you have heard of Whitney Webb, but she is a podcaster, writer, journalist, whatever. And she was talking about the smart cities. This was very interesting because it kind of ties into the coal plants and why they're trying to get rid of them. Yeah. And she said the smart cities, like eventually they're going to do away with obviously personal vehicles, right? Which is one of their goals. But it will take away from you being able to travel to go see your family who lives in a different city. Like your smart city transportation will only go within your city. It won't go city to city. It's only in your city.
Well, and that's, I mean, you can ask Australia how they enjoyed their little circumferences that they could
but
travel
isn't it like
in
a little
during
Hunger Gamesy?
It is, but I mean, one of the real practical the practical application of this whole problem is wind and solar cannot even produce enough to replace a fraction of the coal-fired energy.
Hence Germany is doing away with their wind and solar
because it doesn't do it. It doesn't do enough.
And so, Pennsylvania, who voted blue, has 24 of those plants. So let's see how happy they are for voting blue. Ohio has 15 plants. Michigan just reelected their wonderful governor out there. They have 13 plants. We'll see where you are in a couple of years, Michigan.
Well, I just am shocked that Pennsylvania went the way it did, but that's...
I'm not, I don't buy all purported results.
Neither do I. They changed their voting regulations hours before votes
But
started.
I have to say something about that because, if there's nothing that we can do outside on that except pray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
For God to bring things into the light.
Right.
Exactly.
But I tell you what, democracy is gone.
Right.
The minute one side, doesn't accept the vote.
Right.
It's gone. Right. And so, these are the words of my father, and he, so I don't, it is what it is. What am I going to do by saying don't accept the vote and starting a revolution?
Mm-hmm.
Right. No. You have to accept the vote. And what you do is you leave it up to God to bring it to the light.
Right.
Yep. And you have to pray for God to bring it to the light. But if one side does not accept the vote, what are you going to have? Is that what we want?
Election denials.
We want complete anarchy.
I don't.
No, but I'm just questioning things because that's what I do.
I know, and I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is, that it's just a really fine line. The vote it is in.
Right.
Okay. And until something is brought to light.
Yeah.
Right. Really, really brought to light. You can't, it is dangerous for democracy for one side to say, I am not accepting that vote. Then get on your knees and pray for God to expose it, because what are you really going to do about it anyways? Right.
I don't know, but can I just read a quote that a CNN correspondent tweeted out this morning? This is what he says. He says, let this sink in. This may be the last fair and free election in America's democratic experiment. If the GOP's anti-democracy candidates win their races, they could end the ability of citizens to freely choose their leaders in future elections if they disagree with the results.
Well, let's just look at Joe Manchin here. He's a Democrat, right? But he's an interesting Democrat.
He is interesting.
I'm quoting him.
He rides the middle for sure.
Yeah. President, and we need more of that.
I actually respect some of his stances. Yeah. We
need more people in the middle, and it's the difference in America from what it was. From what it used to be today. There's no one in the middle. But this is Joe Manchin. President Biden's comments are not only outrageous and divorced from reality. He's talking about shutting down coal mines. Mm-hmm. They ignore the severe economic pain the American people are feeling because of the rising energy costs. Comments like these are the reason the American people are losing trust in President Biden and instead believe he does not understand the need to have all-in energy policy that would keep our nation totally energy dependent, independent, and secure. I heard I was watching Kenneth Copeland in a Trump rally, right? Mm-hmm. And he, I'm just quoting Kenneth Copeland, said that one of his high up friends in the oil industry said that United States has enough oil reserves to last for the next 200 years.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Kenneth Copeland announced that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you need
at the rally in Pennsylvania last week.
Yeah. And so with that, we're just going to close it down here. Just stay with us. It's going to get more positive. Really, we're going to try to get into the Bible is prophesying in Revelations 2 and 3 for what the church needs to do in these end times, in these final days before the rapture. And we'll get into that, more instructional, but this is the final reading of the loose timeline of 30 major events of the 7-year tribulation in order. Number 1, the Antichrist rises. We have him on a white horse. Number 2 will be the 7-year covenant signed with Israel by the Antichrist. I believe right around that same time, you're going to have the 2 witnesses appear, those guys. And then you're going to have the second seal, which is a spirit of murder. Some scholars call it the sword of war, coming on a red horse. Third seal, we have the scales of economic collapse and famine riding in on a black horse. And so remember, there will be a 7-year covenant signed with Israel. Okay, so did I just do the third seal? You guys paying any attention?
I heard you say the black horse. I was stuck on the horse. The sixth
seal.
Okay, number 4 seal, we have a pale horse. 1/4 of the earth is
thinking of the bulls.
Killed.
Sorry.
That's 2 billion people. Okay. 5 seal, many believers die as martyrs, coming out of the biggest revival in the history of the world. Number 6, you've got a worldwide earthquake with a possible nuclear war. Then you've got 144,000 Jews getting the seal of God on their foreheads. They will further evangelize the earth. 7th seal is silence in heaven for a half hour. Everything goes quiet in heaven. And from there, we have the trumpet judgments. Remember, most prophecy experts believe that I've studied that the trumpet judgments could happen at any time within the span of the 2nd and 5th year of the tribulation. I'm going to do these even faster. The first judgment, trumpet judgment, hail, fire, and blood rain down on the earth like a storm. 1/3 of the earth's vegetation is burned up. Okay,
we're not here for this.
Second trumpet judgment's a burning mountain into the sea. 1/3 of the sea is polluted. 1/3 of sea life is all just dies. 1/3 of the ship sunk. Number 3, blazing object strikes the earth. 1/3 of the fresh water polluted. That's wormwood. Number 4, the sun, moon, and stars darkened. Number 5, the famous demon locusts are released from the abyss. Remember, their stings are so intense that they make people want to die, but they can't.
That just sounds horrendous.
Yes, they can't die, which says the mark of the beast is actually keeping them from dying. And you got to go back to that. To
biomedics.
Yes.
Sounds like nanotech.
And
we're going to talk about that next week.
Ooh.
Trumpet judgment number 6, 4 angels release. 1/3 of the humans on earth are killed by a 200 million man army. And 3.5 years into the tribulation, for sure, we know the 2 witnesses are killed. The Antichrist defiles the temple, right? I.e. the abomination of desolation. 144,000 Jews that were sealed flee into the mountains of Petra and Jordan. And so you have the Antichrist being wounded and Satan cast out of heaven. Quick side note, 3.5 years, the 2 witnesses are killed and the Antichrist defiles the temple. We know that happens.
Yeah.
So then you have the bowl judgments. Number 1, ugly and painful sores on everyone that has the mark.
Ick.
Number 2, the sea's polluted. All sea life is killed. Number 3, all fresh water is turned to blood and poisoned. Number 4, the sun grows extra hot, starts scorching people. Number 5, the earth goes dark now. So it goes from scorching to dark. Number 6, the Euphrates River dries up completely, all right? Opens the way for the Antichrist armies coming from the east to invade Israel. The 7th bowl judgment, the biggest earthquake the earth has ever experienced. The city of Babylon.
Is it still pitch black then when the earthquake comes?
I don't know. And that's one of Lonaiah's questions. And you have the Battle of Armageddon, okay? The city of Babylon destroyed. The Battle of Armageddon, the second coming of Christ. Satan and the Antichrist and the false prophet are bound and cast into the lake of fire. And so remember the demon locust, Revelation 9:6, going back to that quickly as we close down here. In those days shall men seek death and shall not find it. Okay? So they're going to look to die and they won't find it and shall desire to die and death flees from them. I've heard Jimmy Evans say this is after the locust stings.
Yeah.
And these, they can't get the people that have God, right? They can't get the 144,000 Jews, right?
It's only people with the mark.
Can I say something about the mark? I have a question.
Okay, but just wait. They're going to seek death and not find it. So something about the mark, and we talked about this, will keep them from dying. Right? There's something that guaranteed them youth. Yeah. Right? Obviously. But what's funny? Okay.
No, this is
holding my breath here.
No, it's not really a question. It's more, I was watching, so the Satanic Temple just did a event where they were unbaptizing people. And so I watched it. But this was interesting. What they were doing so that people would come to the table. And I couldn't really hear what they're saying, so that kind of frustrated me. But they were doing, the Catholics
erasing.
Yes,
or was it doing an upside down?
I don't know what they were doing, but they did it on their foreheads. And I thought, isn't that interesting that it's on their foreheads? They're unbaptizing people to the Satanic Church and doing it on their foreheads.
What a great world we live in, where you can go to your local Satanic church and get
unbaptized.
Well, they're being baptized into something, but it's not what they think.
And unbaptized.
Right.
They're going to unbaptize.
But isn't it interesting that they're doing it on their forehead? Like, I was like, how are they going to unbaptize these people? So I was wondering.
What can the devil do other than try to pervert something that's already
right? Because the mark goes into the right hand, right? Yeah. Yeah. So Jesus sits at the right hand, right? So that's a mockery. And now you have unbaptisms on the forehead. Why?
And
sure, because it's a mockery. It's a perversion of what is good.
It's going to get more positive next week. We're sorry for all the darkness.
He's positive about that.
And it is the seven letters to the seven churches are an instructional to the church.
Yeah, it's good.
In the last days. And really, it's prophetic. It's telling you what is coming. Yeah. So on that positive note.
Hey, we talked about some positivity.
Did we?
Yeah, the 2030 agenda isn't anywhere near where they thought it would be, and neither is their climate change agenda. Go us.
Okay, anyways. We love all the listeners. Hey, I was
positive today. It's the coffee.
We love all the listeners and viewers and subscribers.
Absolutely.
Of the Final Hour podcast. I pray for you every day. I seriously do. And before each podcast, we pray for you. And you have the power to do that, to pray over mass groups of people. And so we just, I bless you in the name of Jesus. You pray for your government leaders every day, lift them up to God. If everyone did it, it would make a difference. And so it's just an honor to be able to do this. And just, hey, we've got some Final Hour podcast merchandise coming out.
Yeah.
It is being, It is it is being designed by our professional designer as we speak.
As we speak.
Literally.
She called during the show.
Literally a professional designer.
Yep.
And so we're excited. We're excited for that. We're excited for our new studio coming after Christmas.
Coming soon.
And so
no more plant.
No more plant.
Over Jim's shoulder.
And it's just
the dusty plant.
It's a dusty plant, but notice it's just not quite. It's not straight. You know, I was looking at episode lopsided. 35 one night.
Episode 35.
Yeah, and I was looking 39. At it, and I was like, why doesn't someone straighten out the plant, right? Like what we've never.
I don't know.
Anyways, it's kind of a mainstay. Maybe we bring it with us.
No. Are we gonna celebrate episode 40? Kind of like how a person
like
turns
a 40th birthday party.
Should we?
Oh, and then we're gonna do episode 1 year too after that.
Maybe
Yeah.
Just embrace
high fives
it, Jim.
all around.
Do you have a problem with celebrations?
I don't know. I think we need to go back to Kingdom of Coffee.
All right.
Because I'm losing my coffee buzz.
Oh, no.
I'm starting to see clarity.
So he doesn't want to celebrate our 40th episode.
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
And so thank you so much for tuning into the Final Hour podcast. Please subscribe when you get the chance. God bless you. We love you. Pray for your government.